I remember the day I called my best friend. I was standing on the porch of my home in Washington, D.C., and I told him that I was getting a divorce. And for at least 3 to 5 seconds, there was this pure silence. He, nor I, could believe that the words were coming out my mouth and landing in his ears. And as we spoke about what was happening, he really was shook by the idea that how could me, of all people, not make marriage work? He said just could not understand that. Now, he wasn't simply poking at the idea that I had become yet another part of the statistic about marriages among men and women of African ancestry, but he was also poking at that relationships of this kind needs to happen, needs to last, needs to persist. And it was more than simply a divorce for him. It was more of a larger statement about relations between, black men and women, or I prefer women of African ancestry, men of African ancestry. And so we had our chat, and then I got off the phone. I'm not sure what I did the rest of that day, but that particular conversation kind of rang in my ears with me. And over the years, it stuck with me. Indeed, shortly after, I went to a workshop that was being hosted by a friend who had brought in the late Sambonfu Some. And for those of you not familiar with her, she is the former wife of Maladoma Some, and both were healers. She, in particular, focusing on healing, sharing the world the healing wisdom of Africa. She is Dagati from the Dagara people who live in northern Ghana, but also in the border north of Ghana in Burkina Faso. And I've been to Burkina Faso, particularly the capital of Ouagadougou before. And of course, northern Ghana many times. And so I'm very much familiar with her people. But during the session, she was featuring her new book then. And the book was entitled The Spirit of Intimacy. And so I listened because I wanted to figure out, my own dilemma, having had to chat with my friend and having his shock ring into my ears and really ring through my head and my heart, because this is the first time that I had married and the first time that I had divorced. And so, this was a bit for me to understand. With experience comes wisdom, and from wisdom we get understanding. So I was simply at the point of just experiencing. I hadn't gotten any wisdom, any understanding. So I went to the workshop for some wisdom, and I got some. And in this episode of Papa Nyame, my goal is to share with you some of the important principles and strategies for healing the relationship between men and women of African ancestry. So let's get right into it. And so after coming from the workshop with Sambonfu Some, which was exciting. In fact, at the end, I got her the autographed copy of her book. And she was so calm and so pleasant and so peaceful. I mean, really like the elders I know, personally in my time in Ghana, West Africa, but broad West Africa speaking. And so her calm and her warmth, really was infectious, when I spoke to her briefly, because there were other people in line waiting to get their book signed. So we spoke briefly, and then, of course, I made my way out. After the event, much years later, I began to, look at the principles that she provided and sort of make them my own, that is, give my own voice to them. Because here's the thing about the first principle, which is intimacy. You see, intimacy is not intercourse. Intimacy is not, physical touching and physical action or reaction between a man and a woman. Intimacy could involve that, but intimacy is not, it doesn't boil down to that. And the combinator is not, physical intercourse. In fact, intimacy is much more than that. Intimacy is connection. Intimacy is the bond. Intimacy is the affective bond. That is the connecting tissues that hold two people in this scenario together. Intimacy is about community and family, because it's about the bonds that make us whole and that gives us meaning, so much so that, we want to be surrounded by people who we share the connection and bond with. Doesn't matter how much they get on our nerves, doesn't matter how much we tussle and fight. In fact, you end up loving them more because of the connection or the intimacy established between, the parties. And so intimacy between a couple is the first principle and perhaps a central principle, because intimacy is also about vulnerability. And that vulnerability includes, sharing. If you're a man, and I am one, so I'll take that position. If you're a man, it means sharing not only what's going well, but what's not going well. It doesn't mean, and it's a common mistake we often make as men, hold it inside because she needs to hear that. She knows that we're having financial trouble. She knows that I just lost my job. She knows that I, have going through some personal things. She knows that, I have not been taking care of myself as I should. She knows that I'm very tired. So why burden her? Why bother her with that? But what we fail to understand when we are intimate, we were connected to the woman that we're with, is that we need to share everything, because it's in sharing, then she is able to fill us up when we're low. And likewise, it's in sharing that we also fill her up so then she can recharge us, because in the spirit of intimacy, the woman is not only cosmologically and spiritually speaking, but for all intent and purposes, she is the battery pack that powers us. That's why the woman doesn't stand behind because she's less than. She stands behind because she has our back. She can see further than us, right? And it reminds me of a metaphor between driving a regular car that's loaded to the ground and driving an SUV. And that's why I like SUVs, because I can see further. Right. And so when somebody, has your back, right, and can see things that you can't see, can see, what you're going through, can see the medicine remedy for you, can see, the pain and the anger that has blinded and blocked you from seeing what she can see, that's precisely why you need to share. And the same is true for women. And so intimacy is the first and most important principle of repairing the healthy relationship between men of African ancestry, women of African ancestry. The second principle is self-love. Now, let me break down what I mean by self-love. No, I don't mean decorating yourself and pampering yourself and going to the massage parlor and getting your nails and your eyebrows and whatever else done, facials done. Those are all wonderful, by the way, and we should pamper ourselves, but I don't mean that when I say self-love. In fact, that's the least important thing. That is, decorating our bodies is not self-love. In fact, that's the least important thing one could do. When I say self-love, I mean this. Self-love, and first and foremost, accepting fully and truly all that you are, accepting the things that you are that are wonderful and the things that you are that are not wonderful. It means not hiding and running from the muck and filth and then the flaws that you have. In fact, self-love means this. If you are angry and bitter, or if you, have an anger issue, or if you, don't like children, or if you, have other kinds of flaws that is part of your DNA, is part of who you are, let the pain of those flaws surround you. Let it envelop you, and then confront it. Don't run from it. Don't put on a smile when you catch up on yourself, right? When you screw up your face and then you catch up on yourself and you try to put on that smile after screwing your face up. Don't put on the smile. Catch the screw face, confront it, and tell it to get the heck out of here. You want no part of it, right? Because that's the spirit of anger and evil and bitterness that will rear its head whenever it sees an opening or a gap in your spirit, in your soul. And we all have those gaps. We all have, some of us have caverns, right? Or valleys, whatever the size may be, we all have them. And so self-love is, in fact, the acceptance of the full package that is you in all of its greatness and its flaws, right? And therefore, let the pain and bitterness and anger of the flaws surround you. Let it envelop you. Let it be like a thick, cushion or comforter around you. And rather than seek comfort in it, confront it, challenge it, right? And defeat it. And the more you do that, the less it wants to hang around. That the spirit of anger and bitterness wants to hang around. The spirit of your flaws wants to hang around, be a part of you. Say, this is not the place for me, right? And the more it begins to lead, that's when you begin to break those invisible chains. And that's how self-love begins to rear itself. And as I've shared with you before, the other medicine for self-love is doing good from your heart. Not halfway, not partway, not for a spectacle, not for performance, not for attention, not for feedback, but just do it purely because you want to do it. And the more you do that, the more not only you feed your soul, you feed the self, the real self, right? And loving self is evident for everyone. It's infectious. In fact, my wife has that infectiousness about her. Wherever she goes, right? Wherever she goes, supermarket, she may go to a lecture that I'm giving, or she may go to, the movies, or she may go to, the salon, or wherever else she goes, or on the streets, and people come in contact with her. They say, something about you, I just feel so good. That means you love yourself, right? Now, I don't mean you are loving the image of you, meaning what you see in the mirror, because that's obviously self-aggrandizement. That is, in fact, a crime against yourself. I mean the humility that comes from accepting the full package that is you, right? And she accepts a full package. And so the goodness she does, and she does a lot of this from her heart, right? She'll give her enemies praises, right? I mean, I've never heard of anyone doing that until I met her. Yes, she'll give her enemies praises and say, yes, they may be wicked, but this is a good quality about them. And she'll highlight that. She'll champion that good quality. That to me is infectious. And so I'm learning from her to do more of that, right? Rather than be bitter and angry because that person is an enemy or somebody that you may not talk to or have an issue with, or they have an issue with you, whatever the case may be. That is self-love. That's the second principle. And third, and perhaps the most important principle, is this. Is that the Almighty, God, has to be at the center, has to be the nucleus around which you two as atoms revolve, right? Without that, nothing else works. The intimacy becomes simply just care. And that's important for companionship, but it doesn't allow for the deep connection, the bonds that will not only suture and hold you two together through the rough times, ups and downs, and even the great times that can become even greater. But having Almighty at the center is the glue or adhesive that holds everything in stasis, in bond, right? And so that when you two have a disagreement, when you two can't see eye to eye, when you two, are in your feelings or in your elements, that connection to the Almighty will allow you to to leapfrog, to move over and move beyond that quickly, right? And this is also a sign of love between the couples. It's not that you argue, not that you fight, but it's how you get over and through it. There's some people I know who will hold a grudge or an argument for weeks, for months, even years, right? And yeah, some people may never forget, but they never really get over it, let it go, right? And that's a sign that the person does not love you. Now, with all these principles, intimacy, self-love, and of course, created at the center, you need strategies. And I'll give you a few. First is this: never go to bed angry with each other. I have feelings that are not positive or loving to each other. Whatever it is, talk it out. You be the bigger person by taking the lower seat. That means taking the lower position. Yes, you want to be right, and maybe you are right. But in the eyes of the bond between you two, the intimacy, the connection, no one is right and no one wins when you two go to bed anger or with feelings against each other that had not been resolved. And so talk out, work out whatever it is that has to happen. The next strategy is when these matters hit and perhaps talking out is not immediately helping, there's a ritual called an ash circle, and it's very simple, right? And if you don't have ash, you can use white powder or powder that you buy, for yourself or for babies. And so you can get 2 chairs, put them back to back. That is, the back of the chairs facing, touching each other. And then circle the ash or the powder around in a circle around the 2 chairs. You and your partner sit in each chair. And one at a time, you say whatever you have to say. Don't worry about feelings. Don't worry. No, obviously, the point is not to hurt each other, but it's to get out the hurt, get everything out. Because see, pain and hurt and the things we hold are like toxins in the body. We have to release them like the body releases sweat through our pores. So we have to leave them through our physical and our spiritual pores and get those toxins out. And once each person says everything that they're thinking and feeling, right, they got to get the feelings, right? Which is how it strengthens the intimacy. And this is why the intimacy is so important, the bond, the connection. Once that is out, then you two have the basis to understand each other's points of view. She saw it as a 6, you saw it as a 9. But guess what? The number was crooked that day. Neither was wrong, neither was right. You just saw things differently. And that happens more time than not. That's less about right or wrong. It's more about perspective. And once you understand perspective, then you can have the basis or ground floor to get to understanding. The more you two have these experiences, this is why I don't see conflicts as deal breakers for relationship. In fact, they can be relationship builders and deal builders rather than breakers. They can be the breakthrough if used properly, and this ritual is one way to do so. Then you begin to what? Build from that experience on wisdom, that is knowing who and what she is, what makes she, trigger this or that, what she likes or doesn't like, and the same for you, and that builds what? Understanding, right? The third strategy that I'll share with you that works is children. Especially if you have children and you have a argument, a fight, or it's just a disagreement. It could be simply as, well, I didn't want this cheese, I wanted that cheese. I didn't want, that bread, I wanted whole wheat bread. And, you have to go back to the store, because you forgot something or you got the wrong thing. And of course, you're in your feelings and she's in hers. What do you do? And the children, right, they're looking at you, or they're listening, not looking at you, because they're always listening, by the way, right? Doesn't matter how old your children are, they're always listening. Here's my principal strategy. When they're young, right? When they're young, let's say before 7, 8, or 9, never argue or fight in front of the children. Pick a time. Say, okay, we're at that moment, right? Recognizing this is part of the understanding you get from having your partner. You know when you're about to get there. You know when each other's bubbling. You say, okay, let's tackle this later or after they go to bed. And you to make a decision to say, okay, let's do that. And when you do that, you hash it out, right? Either through the strategies I'm sharing with you or the strategies you may have that are homegrown between you two. As they get older, let them witness 8, 9, and 10 and beyond. Let them witness, right? You two resolving an argument. Because guess what? Problems will always be there. They're omnipresent in this human world, a human populated world. The issue is, how do you resolve them? And the children, as they grow older and they have comprehension skills, they have cognitive skills, they have reasoning, they understand consequences, they are able to also need to see how adults resolve things. They need problem-solving skills, which is more important than ever in this world. Children need to see the adults that are in their lives that have intimate connection to us parents solve problems amicably in a healthy way. Not screaming and fighting, not throwing things, not pulling out weapons, not taking it there, right? You need to see that, but when they're a little bit older, right? And these strategies, right, as simple as they are, can be deeply powerful. And of course, last strategy, which is a bundle I'll share with you, is that make sure you as a family eat together. Right? My family used to always, and still do, we typically eat together around the same time. And usually, either you can watch the show together or not. And eating together is a very important bonding ritual to connect and increase the bonds that are there. And increasing the bonds that are there through this ritual of eating is one of the most important things that goes unnoticed. That is, don't scatter into your own rooms. Have a time together. Have a little, village meeting, so to speak, and over breaking bread. Second strategy in working together as a family is praying together, right? The adults pray, the children pray, that they teach them how to pray or pull libation or engage in the matter of directly have a relationship with the Almighty, right? Doing it and practicing it and being a model and being the example of that will take them far, so that in life later on, when they do stray, when they have the detour, when they have their hiccups, when they have their mistakes, they will have the ground floor to fall back on, that you have all built as a family together, right? And these small but very important things will allow us to regenerate the spirit of intimacy, to make sure those bonds are based more than simply intercourse and looks and getting sweaty, but they are about none of those things, but they're the most powerful medicine there is for sustaining those health relationships. And of course, the Almighty remains at the center and the core of both the principles I've shared with you and the strategies. For Powered by Nyame, I've been your guide and host. Kindly drop your questions or comments in the section below. Until next time, stay well.